I'm really excited right now because I'm here with a person whose name is Kory Mackinnon, who have done like bunch of deals, 60 plus doors, rental properties, who started real estate investing in 2004, and right now doing some big projects like 10-acre land development and big church redevelopment. What? Let me get right into the questions.
Sure.
So how long have you been in this game?
Yeah, I've been in it since 2004, 2005, and it's funny. I wanted to buy a house 3-4 years before that, and I went to the bank, and I was in my early 20s, and I thought I was going to make a certain amount of money one year, and I didn't. So I was like living on credit cards and that sort of thing. I was actually using one credit card to pay off another credit card, and at one point I actually missed one of those little minimum payments. I was like, oh, that's such a puny payment. I'm not going to worry about that. I'll just wait a month or two until I actually have all the money, and I'll just pay the card off. Little did I know, missing minimum payments is a very bad thing. So that gave me a pretty big scratch on my credit rating, especially since I was just starting to build up my credit, and then I got hammered down. So when I was applying for mortgages back then, I couldn't get the best rates, and I didn't want to pay an extra 2 or 3% on my mortgage rates. So I just said, you know what, I'm not going to do that. So I kind of was in the penalty box for a few years, and I'm like, I'm just going to learn even more about real estate, because the deal I was actually trying to buy at that time was like a little semi-detached house, and there was 3 bedrooms up and 1 bedroom apartment in the basement. So it would have been a good little property, but so I learned, and I was, I tried to seek out mentors back then, but it was a lot harder, man. There wasn't nearly the networks like this here today, and there's only Rich Dad Poor Dad and a couple other resources around. So looked at a lot of properties, and we just weren't finding anything that really fit. Until I came home one day, and I was living in a sixplex. I was renting a 2-bedroom apartment in a sixplex, and me and that landlord had conversations like, "Hey, would you ever want to buy this place?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'd love to buy this place," right? And he'd throw out a random number, and then 6 months later, the number would go up, and then 6 months later, the number would go up again. So I was 4 years into renting with this property here in London, and then one of my franchisees, I used to run a big student painting franchise company. They sent me a phone call, and they were like, "Kory, there's a for sale sign on the line of your sixplex." I was like, "What are you talking about? Mark was supposed to call me, and we were supposed to do a private deal if this was ever going to sell." So he was like, "Yeah, it's not just me, it's my partner. He wanted to sell, so we're just going to list it high, see if we can catch a flyer." And they didn't. It sat on the market, and it kept falling apart on inspection because there was knob and tube wiring and a little bit of galvanized plumbing, and it had an asbestos roof. So it sat and sat, didn't sell. He called me up, and he's like, "Kory, do you still want this thing? You want to make a deal?" I said, "Sure." So the deal was that we negotiated $30,000 less. He did the roof, he did the plumbing, he did electrical. So I was getting really good value at that point, because it was basically fixing everything that was falling apart on these inspections for the other people. And got into that one. The biggest challenge was financing. He wanted me to take over his sixplex financing through TD Bank, and I didn't like the rate. I didn't want to take it over. I wanted a new rate, lower rate, current market rate, fresh 5-year mortgage. And back then it was a little more challenging. There's really only 2 banks that would do sixplex mortgages. It was TD, and then I found out BMO would do it too. So got into that one, did a little bit of a burr, because the thing with that landlord was he kind of would do about 85% of all the work, still left some work on the table. And I did a little bit of a burr on that one because real estate was going up a little bit, and I was able to raise my rents up by 5 or 10%.
So was that your first property?
It was my first property was actually a sixplex. So it's like, talk about, let's say you want to go into running races. Your first race is not like a 5K race. I decided to go run a marathon for my first race, right?
But how did you know that, sixplex, you didn't even have a house? So were you not scared?
Well, I was very interested in real estate for quite some time. At that point, it was about 5-6 years now. And keep in mind, I actually looked at my first property when I was 17 years old. My best friend's dad sold real estate, and I remember being 17, seeing an ad in the newspaper, triplex, south end of Sarnia, and I had a pretty mature voice. My voice has always been deep, so I think when I called that agent, he must have thought I was older, and went through it. I had no idea. I was just like, and he was like, "Oh, so you ready to buy this place?" And I was like, "Oh, maybe my parents will help me out." And but it was, I wanted to at least start opening my eyes and my mind to that sort of stuff at an early age. So
that's really important. You have that open-minded. Like from the beginning, you want to have a financial, strong. So
my father actually, we lived in a duplex when I was growing up, and my father had a rental property as well. So I was kind of exposed to real estate and a little bit of investing when I was young too. So I wanted that as well.
Basically, your dad was house hacking.
He actually bought this house. He had no choice. When we bought this house, the tenant came in the upstairs apartment, and she lived in this little attic apartment. It was literally written into the purchase and sale agreement. It was registered on title that you couldn't kick her out and you couldn't raise her rent. It was like $25 or $35 a month until she died. And,
that's insane.
So he inherited that. There's no way around it. And I just always knew the little old lady lived upstairs, and we had to be nice to her and couldn't be too loud downstairs. And
so how did you navigate from there? So now you started with 6-unit building right off the bat. How did you got the funds? Were you working at that time, or?
I was working. I'd recovered from that little glitch with my credit, and the next year I actually had my best income year and another good income year, another good income year. I was investing a little bit in RSPs, so I used the first-time homebuyer plan for a little bit of the down payment. I used my savings, and then literally I got an advance on my commission checks. 3 months out, I said, "Look, I used to loan you money. Can you loan me a bit of money? I'm good for it. Look, all the money's in the bank. I know we just have this commission delay, so I got a commission advance, and it was a big down payment. It was $107,000.
I really love it because it's like, it's like you tried literally everything, whatever you can to get that property, right? That's super awesome. So then from there onwards, now you're working on multiple things, ton of units. So, and also, if I remember correctly, you said you already quit your job, right? How long was that?
I quit my job 5.5 years ago. Great company. I still really believe in Student Works Painting. It's like the junior achievement for university students, and you know some friends from there too. Great people. It really helps people cut their teeth as an entrepreneur, and a lot of them will go on from that entrepreneurship into home ownership and real estate investing, all those sorts of things, which is awesome. But it wasn't my business, wasn't my company. I had a chance to buy in 10% for a bunch of money, and I looked at it and I was like, well, I could go buy 3 more properties with that. So that's what I kept doing. And you get married, your life changes. You can't work like the bachelor lifestyle anymore. I used to work from the time the sun went up to midnight, right? Eating lunch or eating dinner late at night and all that kind of stuff, which is great. But you get married, that changes. That doesn't work with a wife. You start to have kids, that changes too. So when my first son was born, I was like, man, I'm missing chunks of my son's life, right? I remember he was only 100 days old one time. I was gone for 5 days. I was like, I just missed 5% of his life, and he changed and he looked different. And,
that's very important, right? Family life is gone, and honestly, that's one of my big pain too. From my 5th grade, I never been with my family more than a month.
Oh wow!
So that's a big pain. That's really a sad thing to have, but you cannot change it, right?
Yeah, but you can't change the past.
Exactly. But now you changed it, the future. Now, did you was your journey all smooth like this? Was there any horrible stories?
Not too horrible, but I think any entrepreneur's journey or anybody's journey who's trying to do something that's a little bit of a different path is always going to be full of ebb and flow. And luckily I've always try to be more resourceful and not just think of I don't have the resources to do this. I need to be more resourceful. So whether it's seeking the right contacts or the right connections or whatever, but yes, I'm a big believer, just like Mike Rosehart was talking yesterday on the stage, fail fast, fail early, fail forward, but also fail when the stakes are small. All right, don't fail when the stakes are huge and it's like you're betting your entire empire on.
I love that.
Right, so you can recover from something pretty small. You just catch it and get back on track. So. But I've had my share of ups and downs. I've had my share of contractors messing up and not doing what they're supposed to. And fortunately, I've been pretty good with tenants. Never not been paid. Sometimes the rent's a little bit late, but always been paid with the rent. So
awesome. And you also mentioned that you're now getting more into furnished rental. So why, and is it profitable?
Yeah, furnished rental. I mean, So I do investing in a couple different markets. I focus on mainly Sarnia, London. I do a little bit of investing in Windsor too. So we got to talk more, man. So
Okay, sure.
but in Sarnia, there's no extended stay hotels, or if there are, there are very few of them. They're kind of like motels, and that's where you really you're dealing with truckers, and nothing against them, but it's a lot of blue collar, not where like white collar professionals want to stay for a month. Okay, so my real estate agent approached me and just said, Kory, look, there's a demand for this sort of thing. Here's a good condo, and if you can furnish this condo, we have a tenant for 6 months, but you have 5 days to get it ready, 5 or 7 days. I'm like, what's the rent going to be? And he was like, it's going to be double what you'd regularly get. I'm like, I'll make it happen, right? So,
Double the regular like if I have like $500 for a 1-bedroom unit, you mean like you're getting for the same unit $1,000?
yeah, this was a 3-bedroom condo, so market rent would have been like $1,200 to $1,500, and they said, look, you'll be getting $2,700 a month for this.
Holy cow! Literally, that's insane.
Yeah,
That's
so my
awesome.
next call was to Enterprise, got to rent a cargo van. I'm going to the store, I'm picking up beds, bed frames, couches. We bought some couches on Kijiji. We would only buy them if they could get delivered because I couldn't fit that in the cargo van. Everything was up except for art and some knickknacks. But I mean, you can furnish a kitchen pretty quickly. And once you have a checklist of all the things that you need to have, whether it's these, relocation clients or an Airbnb, I mean, you turn it into a system, and now we have these systems, and we just keep repeating it.
And what is the vacancy rate? Because now you're doing furnished, and which is higher rent, right? So what is your vacancy rate?
It's very low. I mean, and that's why I'm going to be using Airbnb to fill the gaps. But really, when I did the math and when I did my accounting work for last year, it's like we were full 10.5 to 11 months of the year.
Awesome.
So sometimes you're just going to have like 3, 4, 5 days vacancy, but you need that sometimes to touch up some paint or do a few things anyway. So
That's super cool. I think I'm gonna try furnished rental. But also another thing.
try it or you're going to do it.
I'll think. We'll talk about that maybe. So another thing, like I see you more active on social media, Facebook, Instagram. I get some nuggets are like I really love that. Like, why are you so active? Now you're super busy with your projects, but you're still spending some time on social media. Why?
I've seen other people share their journey in the past, and I think it's very powerful. And sometimes I see people on their phones too much, right? They're just like, they're posting pictures about their lunch. And, that used to be great when Facebook was brand new, maybe 10 years ago. But now it's about, and I feel like I have a good story to share. I mean, I've had other people say, hey, you should really share a little bit more. And I was sharing more maybe 3-4 years ago, and it didn't really seem to be getting the traction or the likes and that sort of stuff, because I think people are still too into like taking pictures of their lunch at that time and posting it. But things changed, and I didn't make that switch quickly enough. And one of my mentors said, hey, you really should be posting, like multiple times a week. And I was like, really? Multiple times a week? Why? Because, all this stuff has an algorithm, and it feeds into itself, and it's important. I said, sure, I'll give it a shot, right? And he's like, well, don't just post about business all the time, post a little bit about business, a little bit about family, a little bit about hobbies and passions and all that stuff, so people see the full picture of who you are, right? Yeah. They're not just like, Kory's this guy that lives and breathes real estate, which I do, but, everybody's got a life as well. Exactly. So, and people started liking it, right? And even if people aren't liking your stuff, they're still watching it. And I'd see them at the grocery store, I'd see them out, or I'd reconnect with friends and stuff. They're like, what you're doing is really awesome.
Yeah, I love it, and I see results for myself too, and I heard from many people, even this in this event. So one last question. This is really, I learned so much from your story. If you have to give one suggestion for a newbie who is like literally just looking to start real estate investing, what would be that?
One suggestion for a newbie. And just thinking about how I could have done this bigger, better, faster. Don't think that you need to have that big first down payment all saved up by yourself, right? I mean, if I would have known what I know now about joint venturing and raising capital, and getting maybe a second mortgage or hard money or whatever, because it was a really good deal. Even that first deal I didn't do would have been a good deal. That first little duplex that I didn't want to sign that higher mortgage on. So don't always question the price of the shovel when you can dig gold with it, right? And you don't always have to be thinking like, oh, I need these 20% down payments, 20% down, and it's like, no, you don't. There's a room full of people here that might have the money, but they don't want to manage the property, tenants and toilets and all that kind of stuff, right? So don't be afraid to joint venture, and don't be afraid to partner up with other people.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you so much, Kory. Seriously, you're awesome.
No, you are too.
Thank you.